Rain drifted across the quiet streets of London in the year 2189 as Commander Arthur Hayes stood on a balcony overlooking the Thames, watching distant starships glide through the clouds above a city that had once ruled an empire on Earth and now hosted diplomats from across the galaxy. Humanity had only joined the Galactic Council 80 years earlier, making them the youngest and often least respected member among civilizations millions of years old. Yet that evening, every ambassador in the council chamber seemed uneasy because a mysterious phenomenon had begun erasing entire star systems from existence, leaving perfect spheres of empty space where stars and planets once existed, and even the ancient Salafi archivists, keepers of galactic history for nearly 9 million years, admitted they had never recorded anything like it before. The Council had named the threat the Silence, because every ship sent to investigate had vanished without a trace, including a powerful Dravari war fleet whose final transmission showed stars flickering out moments before the signal went dead, and as the holographic map displayed the growing void spreading across the Orion Arm, many alien. Leaders began arguing about evacuations and defensive alliances, yet Hayes quietly noticed something strange about the pattern, because the disappearing systems formed a slow path through space that avoided unstable stars while moving steadily toward densely populated advanced civilizations, almost like a predator hunting prey. And when he pointed this out, the chamber grew silent as the Salafi confirmed his observation was correct. Suddenly, the terrifying idea emerged that the silence might not be a weapon or cosmic accident, but a living phenomenon feeding on advanced civilizations themselves, a predator that had likely consumed countless societies long before humanity ever reached the stars. Although the Council doubted that a young species like humans could solve such a crisis, they eventually allowed Hayes to lead a small investigation fleet, partly out of desperation and partly out of curiosity about humanity's reputation for creative problem-solving. And within weeks, the experimental starship, Indomitable, departed Earth, accompanied by a coalition crew of scientists and engineers from across human nations, along with a few cautious alien observers. As the fleet traveled toward the edge of the expanding void, they passed silent colonies where evacuation ships had fled, while distant stars occasionally blinked out of existence, one by one, like candles in darkness, confirming that the silence was still moving steadily closer to the populated regions of the galaxy. Studying the data carefully, Hayes remembered how predators on Earth often avoided chaotic environments where hunting became difficult, and this gave him an idea that most alien strategists initially considered reckless. If the silence preferred stable star systems, then perhaps turning space itself into a chaotic storm might disrupt it. Using experimental gravitational generators and controlled stellar reactions, the fleet began transforming a region around a dying neutron star into a turbulent field of shifting gravity and energy waves, essentially creating the cosmic equivalent of rough seas. And when the silence finally arrived, sensors detected enormous distortions entering the region like an invisible giant moving through water. But for the first time since its discovery, the predator slowed, as if confused by the unpredictable environment. However, the hesitation lasted only moments before the entity began adapting and moving deeper into the region, forcing Hayes to initiate the final phase of his plan, which required using the Indomitable itself as bait to lure the silence directly toward the unstable neutron star, while the rest of the fleet prepared a synchronized detonation of gravitational charges as the starship accelerated forward, broadcasting powerful energy signals. The invisible predator followed, drawn toward the apparent activity of a thriving civilization, and the crew watched calmly from the bridge, despite knowing they were only seconds away from becoming the next vanished victims. When the Silence finally reached the center of the trap, Hayes gave the order, and hundreds of gravitational charges detonated at once, triggering a violent collapse in the neutron star's magnetic field that twisted space-time into a spiraling vortex powerful enough to tear apart even an entity existing partly outside reality. The resulting gravitational storm raged for several minutes before finally fading, and when the surviving ships scanned the region again, the immense distortions that marked the Silence were gone. Completely. Weeks later, the Galactic Council confirmed that the Predator had vanished and declared the battle site humanity's stand, acknowledging that the youngest civilization in the Alliance had succeeded where ancient empires had failed, not through superior weapons, but through adaptability, creativity, and the stubborn determination to face impossible odds. Commander Arthur Hayes returned quietly to Earth soon afterward, and one rainy evening he walked once again beside the Thames, watching starships pass overhead, while the familiar scent of wet pavement filled the air, reflecting that humans had never set out to become heroes of the galaxy, but had simply followed the same instinct that had carried their species through centuries of hardship on Earth: the refusal to surrender when darkness threatened the future.